Good evening, Barbadians and residents and visitors to Barbados. It is regret this afternoon, just 72 hours that I last spoke to you on Monday, in terms of our concerns about COVID-19 and Barbados at this time, that I am now here before you. Over the last 6 hours or so, there have been some serious developments in terms of COVID in relation to Barbados, and it will require certain actions to be taken, more stringent and serious actions for us in terms of the COVID-19 in Barbados. There have been some number of additional cases, 10 cases reported, and of these, 5 are of concern to the Ministry of Health and Wellness especially. And in this regard, action will have to be taken, and I'm going to ask the Minister of Health and Wellness, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, to address you in terms of the specific issues and concerns within that ministry regarding this latest development. Thank you. I should also let you know that the Prime Minister would also be addressing you in terms of certain measures that will have to be taken as a result of this information. Thank you. Minister Bostic.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you, Minister Walcott. As Minister Walcott would have indicated, there are 10 new positive COVID-19 cases in Barbados. During the last 5 hours or so, we were scrutinizing the results from the Best dos Santos lab, and the lab, through the test results, indicated that there were 10 positive cases. Of concern is the fact that we have 5 cases that we are actively pursuing and investigating. And these cases are of concern to us because these are cases that we cannot link at this time to persons who had traveled recently. In other words, the 5 cases suggest that there is some local transmission, and I repeat, local transmission. There is no community spread in Barbados at this point in time. Out of the 5 cases, there are 3 that we are even given greater attention to, and that is because in the case of 2 of the cases are actually officers of the Barbados Prison Service. And the Ministry of Health and Wellness is engaging at this point in time with prison authorities, and we will be launching a massive campaign at the prison intended to test every single person who works at the prison in Barbados over the next 48 hours. And that is inclusive of prisoners, prison wardens, and also civilian staff. And this is going to be going on for the next 48 hours, as I said, and we will continue also to throw as many of our resources as we need to in terms of the other 3 cases. So all 5 cases will be under active investigation, and we intend to bring this matter to some sort of clarity once we have all of the facts available. It's at this stage that we will invite the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. George, who will give some additional details.
Good afternoon, everyone. As the Minister had indicated, there are 10 new positive cases, 5 of which are of particular concern. And the 5 of particular concern are as follows: a 37-year-old male of a Christchurch address, a 28-year-old male of a St. James address, a 43-year-old female of a St. Thomas address, an 18-year-old male of a Christchurch address, and a 43-year-old male of a St. James address. 3 of the 5 had minor symptoms that suggested that they were infected with COVID, but as we indicated, none of them had a travel history. I would just like the public to know that we will start, the contact tracing has started immediately, and we have put measures in place to make sure that every individual will be tested associated with each case. We have done this before at the National Assistance Board. We have done this before at the Ellerslie School and the outbreak in a church. We do have the resources to make this happen, and I ask the public to bear with us during this period of time, cooperate with public health officials to make this process seamless. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. George. I'm now going to ask the Prime Minister, the Honourable Mayor Motley, to speak to you in terms of the specific actions that will have to be taken. Only yesterday we introduced some new directives, and there will be additional directives starting tonight. And I'm going to ask the Prime Minister, she will speak to those specifically and other matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Walcott. Good afternoon to all Barbadians and all who are hearing my voice. I would have been speaking to you anyhow today, but clearly the speech that I was coming to give has now completely changed. From this very room earlier this year, I told the country that we know what we have to do as a nation together to get through COVID. It remains critical that we stay focused and do and believe that each of us is going to have to take action to protect every person around us, and to believe that every person around us potentially can harm us. For that is why these masks are made. We are at this stage going to look at putting a number of issues and a number of measures in place. But I want to talk for a minute to you, because I did promise you that as easily as we know how to press the accelerator, we know how to press the brakes. The time for brake pressing has come upon us. Just before 10:30 this morning, Minister Bostic called me and briefed me as to what the Ministry of Health had found within the last hour. As a result of that, the government has moved with absolute alacrity to be able to take the actions in place. I've met with the subcommittee of cabinet. We've taken certain decisions that we believe to be critical, not to panic anybody, but we told you that we will never wait until we have a whole set of cases in order to take action. We also told you that any day that we have cases that we don't know how we got there or how the persons received the virus, then we would be taking immediate action to press brakes. That moment has come. For the cases that both Dr. George and Minister Bostic spoke about, we do not yet know how these persons contracted the virus. And to that extent, therefore, the time has come for the country to go on pause for a little bit until we can get all of the facts that we need to get. In the case of the National Assistance Board, we were already in restricted movement when that happened, and we were able, luckily, to do the contact tracing aggressively. In the case of Ellerslie School, we also were able to do that aggressively and get beyond that point. With the prison, the circumstances are clearly more complex, and having 2 prison officers positive within the last few hours has clearly put us at risk of a difficult situation and potential transfer within the prison system. I'm therefore in full agreement with the approach by the Ministry of Health that will allow all persons excuse me, at the prison to be tested, whether they are prisoner, prison officer, civilian staff, to be tested within the next 48 hours, and thereafter to be tested again 5 days later to have for sure remove from us, get some water please, to remove from us any possibility of any difficulties with respect to the contagion of this virus in Barbados. We are not yet at a panic stage, but we are at the stage of firm decisions and firm action being taken. I've learned in my life that a few hours of fetting and frolicking become only a memory, but that memory needs a person to be living for that person to enjoy the memory themselves. If not, it is just others reflecting on other people. For us, therefore, regardless of the fact that this is Old Year's Day, New Year's Eve, the fact that in some parts of the world 2021 has already risen, that's irrelevant. We are now going to take action to protect the vital interests of Barbadians, our guests, and indeed our country. To that extent, therefore, with immediate effect, this country will have a curfew from midnight to 5 a.m. from today, 31st of December, until the 14th of January. Every night from midnight to 5 a.m. We're doing that in order to be able to pause and cause everybody to pause with respect to the frolicking and the public gatherings and fetting. There will be no commercial fetes day or night during that next period up until the 14th of January. No commercial fetes. I was not going anywhere tonight, thank you. I was not going anywhere tonight. And I was actually getting ready to do a selfie video when the minister called me, thank you, and to indicate that I wasn't going anywhere tonight, that stay with your family, stay with the few friends that you have in a bubble, and just reflect and talk ignorance. I can reflect and give praise, do whatever you want, but stay in your small bubble. There is all the more reason for persons to do that tonight now. With respect to those who had planned events, this is a caring government. There are 65 events, Mr. Chapman has indicated, that applied to the COVID monitoring unit. We will reimburse those persons the expenses for perishable items and sunk costs for setup. This government is caring, but it is not foolish. Liquor can last, so we're not paying for anybody and compensating anybody for any alcohol. But we accept that a lot of people may have gone, may have bought food, may have done things. We will reimburse them for that upon the appropriate evidentiary proof being submitted to the appropriate bodies, as you will hear from the subcommittee next week. Secondly, we are going to declare Monday and Tuesday as bank holidays, not because we want you to go out there and fet or gather. In fact, it's the absolute opposite. We are still insisting that people stay as close as possible to where they live or to people with whom they have a bubble relationship, family, or that friends in a close bubble. And why? Because the public health officials need the space and time of a paused Barbados in order to aggressively carry out the contact tracing. If we had had National Heroes Day and May Day in April, we would be having 2 bank holidays back to back. And if we can do it for those other purposes, we can do it for the public health officials in order to be able to get into people's homes and to be able to monitor and to test and to trace. With respect to those persons who live in houses with prison officers, we're asking you, just relax yourself for a few days and don't mix. Don't go about mixing. We hope that like the NAB, like the LSE situation, that this will come out good too, but we have to be prepared if it doesn't. Unfortunately for us, since earlier this year, this country is more than prepared, and on the 19th of December, when last I spoke to you, I indicated that, thank God, that all of the arrangements with respect to our facilities at Harrison's Point, we have 80 beds there, so there's no issue for any running out of space at this point in time, and that's why we're intervening aggressively at this stage, because we don't want it to get ahead of us. Similarly, we have the nurses, we have the doctors, we have what we need, and we are obviously moving and seeing light at the end of the tunnel with respect to, during 2021, we expect by the end of the first quarter to have vaccines here that will allow us to be able to deploy, particularly to the most vulnerable. Because Monday and Tuesday will be bank holidays, and because we are putting this pause in place over the next 2 weeks with the curfew in place, I'm also going to indicate, or I am indicating, that school will be deferred. It's opening for 2 weeks as well, and that there will be certainly no school between now and the 14th in terms of physical attendance whatsoever. the Ministry of Education will have to advise whether virtual classes can indeed start, and she will address the country on Monday as to whether that is possible or not. We're not rushing and making hasty and foolish decisions at this stage, but we're not going to put anybody at risk. Similarly, tonight, people would have bought fireworks. If you want to let go of your fireworks at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you can do so, but ensure that while the fireworks are diffusing in the air, cast your eyes up, but no set of gathering on the ground, because the police, the Commissioner of Police is with me, the Chief of Staff is with me, and they have very, very clear instructions not to deal with any foolishness with people gathering in large groups, because the government, as you heard from Minister Walcott on Monday, and Minister Bostic and the Attorney General, that the government is insisting that people comply with the protocols. I want to speak to you about the very difficult issue, obviously, of churches. We would have been aware that tonight is watch night, and that normally churches would close after midnight. We are literally saying to churches, if you are going to have services, you have to have people finished by 11 o'clock. Similarly with restaurants, where we believe that the protocols of the restaurants, and I'm advised by the COVID monitoring unit, Mr. Chapman, and others, that the protocols being observed in restaurants are generally complied with, and that to that extent, restaurants and churches can remain functioning this evening, but by 11 o'clock, shut it down so that everybody can get home, whether it is the church service or whether it is the restaurant. In the case of the restaurants, we're asking those restaurant owners to make provision for staff to get home after 11, especially if they have to take 2 buses, because there's no possibility of most instances of 2 buses being taken between 11 and 12. And to that extent, therefore, persons will be required to think. I'm not asking you to panic. People can go out and have dinner this evening as they want. Stay in your bubble. Wear your mask. Sanitize. Right here in Lara Court, I have so many sanitizer bottles I can't even think. From you walk in and all over the house. And we need to just continue doing what we know is absolutely critical if we are going to beat this thing. And as Jeffrey keeps saying, no retreat, no surrender. In addition to the fireworks being used earlier tonight, because we recognize that those can go dumb as well. And even with all of this, there's nothing like looking into the skies and seeing some fireworks go off, but do not let us get exuberant about it. We are not shutting the beaches at this stage, but I want you to know I am frightened to do it. So if we see people doing ignorance, I've asked the Attorney General to ensure that there's drone technology made available to the police force so that they and the Coast Guard can keep adequate watch. There's nothing wrong with being in the sea. I like the sea bad. But what we don't want is people on the beaches gathering in the manner that they did on Boxing Day, which was completely unacceptable, and for which I've asked the COVID monitoring unit to let me know how it happened and what actions they were going to take about it, because we all know better, especially those who were on the boats and those who were on the beaches. So my friends, I'm asking us to bear with us on these things. The public holiday, as I said, will be Monday and Tuesday. The benefit of a public holiday, Her Excellency will have to do the appropriate directive, but the benefit of a public holiday is that supermarkets, gas stations, those things will all be open, so there's no need for any panic buying. I want to repeat myself. Bajans, brethren, sistren, all of we, there is no need for any panic buying, because those things will be immediately accessible. All we are trying to do, my friends, is to allow the Ministry of Health to undertake an aggressive form of contact tracing and testing, so that to the extent that there are persons in the community that have it, that we can contain it. When we met at the gymnasium earlier this year in among the social partnership, and we took decisions as a nation together that we had to learn to balance lives and livelihoods. We are aware that there are issues, and to that extent, that is why the government continues to do what it can to carry those entities that have been regrettably affected and those persons that have been regrettably affected. And you know the facts better than most now, because the level of unemployment benefit and the level of support to businesses and the tourism sector is well known to all, but we will continue to do so. Mercifully, we are in a position to do so. Indeed, yesterday, another $100 million became available to us from the Latin American Development Bank, better known as CAF, and our reserves as we stand today literally are at 2.656 billion, which is just 2,656,000,000, which is roughly about 35 weeks of import cover. This country has never had it with that level of reserves. So we are ready for all eventualities, including those measures that are necessary to trigger growth and to get jobs going in 2021 among our people again as a result of this very difficult pandemic that has confronted us. At the same time, the Ministry of Health has been dealing aggressively with the dengue issue, and I want to commend the officers in the Ministry of Health, commend the Minister. I was actually coming here to also tell you that we have been talking a lot about the frontline workers. We are going to commend them, as I've publicly stated, but there's another category of frontline worker that has really been on the ball and that has not had a week's rest, and certainly a weekend's rest. Even though I've insisted they try to take a day or two off, they don't. And I'm talking about Jeffrey Bostic, I'm talking about other members of the cabinet, and I want today, the last day of the year, irrespective of what was happening, to publicly thank them and their families for what they have done on behalf of this nation over the course of 2020. I thank the other frontline workers, but we all know that when the occasion merits it, we don't ask questions. We stand up to the task and we do what is necessary as a people. And Barbados's brand is about shared responsibility, shared benefits, shared burden. And to that extent, we are all in this together. We are taking preemptive action because if we don't take action now, in 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, it may be a situation that is exponentially unfolding. And that is why we've said the balancing between the accelerator and the brakes are the most important thing that this country needs to manage. I want to talk to some parents too. You need to talk to your children. And we need to talk our children through this, because the most natural thing is for children to believe that the world begins and ends with a fete, or the world begins and ends with a line, or the world begins and ends with just being with your friends and doing as you like. You're going to get that chance again. And I am going to be on the front line with you when that time comes again. When we have COVID behind us, when we have the majority of people who need to be vaccinated behind us, when the world is literally putting COVID in a box for good. But until such time, you do not take foolish risk. And I want to remind you that the person who may be most affected may be the person that you love. I believe that it is okay for people to take some rest and reflect and get in your family and your bubble. But it is moderation, moderation, moderation. It is mask, mask, mask. It is washing your hands or sanitizing. It is the 3 foot to 6 foot. And if you can't do the under 6 feet, under 3 feet, wear your mask. That's why the masks are there. If you are beyond the 3 feet, you can then have a little more. But as long as you are in that periphery, I'm asking you to ask your children. And I'm talking about people from all across this island. I'm talking about people from all economic backgrounds, all races, all gender, everybody. We are in this together. And whatever else you do, pause, not panic. Pause, not panic. And I'm asking the country to allow us, therefore, to go through this period so that we can keep the ship stable as we go forward. We have a lot of guests with us. We're asking you, enjoy our beaches, enjoy our restaurants, enjoy your company, but do not overdo, because the government officials, in particular the monitoring officials and the police, will take necessary action where people are breaching protocols inappropriately, as they have already done, Minister Bostic, I believe, with respect to persons in the last few days having been made to account for their breaches of protocol. My friends, let's put this in context. Barbados has not recorded a death from COVID for some time. I want it so. We recognize that the persons, by far the majority of persons presenting, are asymptomatic. In other words, they don't got the symptoms, so you don't know that they have it. It therefore means that you have to believe in yourself first, and in believing in yourself, protect yourself. Then anybody who like to hug and kiss more than me, I like it. Meet people, you hug them, you give them a kiss on the cheek. But for now, hold tight. You understand? Blow a kiss, it works. You understand? Bounce the hand, it works. Do the feet, bounce it, it works. But what I want Bajans to do is moderate, moderate, and moderate. Pause, but do not panic. If we do that, if we can do that, then I believe over the next few days, the news coming from the Minister of Health and the Chief Medical Officer will be news that will be pleasing to our ears, but it needs all of our cooperation. And perhaps it has come on no better day than the last day of 2020 to remind us that this thing is very much still with us and that we need persons to take the appropriate action. Before I close, I really want to say to Barbadians, we can get through this, but I do need you to cooperate. I also want to say to those visiting that I do not expect any difficulty while you are staying with us. We welcome you, but we want you to follow our rules as well, because that is the only way we're going to get through this. My friends, I want to wish you all a happy, peaceful, safe, healthy 2021. There are many things that happened in 2020, and we all know them. But the things that I wanted to talk to you today about, had I had the full opportunity to do so, would have related to the lessons that we've also learned from 2020. Because 2020 taught us, regardless of how much money you have, regardless of where you live, regardless of what you do, that you have to take care of yourself, that these are the things that matter, that money doesn't matter if you're sick, that your house in a big house don't matter if you're sick, that if you can't share with one another, it matters not. And that at the end of the day, it has brought out in us a respect for every human being and every job, whether the job is a supermarket worker, whether the job is a doctor, whether the job is a police officer doing his job, or a customs or immigration officer, is this a poor health worker, a nurse, all of these jobs matter. Because for this society to function well, for you to be peaceful, for you to be happy, we all must work together. So 2020 taught us a lot of lessons, including too that the earth needed us to pause for the earth to breathe again. And if there is one difficult part of 2020 and COVID, it is the fact that we cannot drop our guard. And as long as a human being cannot drop their guard, it means that their breathing will always be a little more agitated, because it does not allow us to step back and fall back. We have to keep vigilant. So those lessons we'll continue to talk about, but for now, my friends, be safe. Ensure that you stay with your families and keep your families safe. Keep your small bubbles, but do not take foolish chances or risk for a few hours enjoyment. And more importantly, over this long weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, use it as a time for reflection and use it as a time to prepare yourself for what we have to continue to do. 2021 still has a lot of uncertainty, and it will take time, and the ministry and ourselves will talk to you about the vaccines, but for now, let us use this time to commune with whom we love, who we care about, to be peaceful, have your meals, have your drinks, but if I have to stop the bars and the liquor, I'm coming back to do it. I'm not playing. So thank you very much. Happy 2021. Minister Walcott, thank you. And of course, Minister Walcott, as you know, has been placed in charge of the Cabinet Subcommittee. We took a decision that it was difficult to find the appropriate person as a czar. Mr. Carter, who we thank for his wonderful work in the early part of the year, has had to obviously go back to his substantive employment with the British government. And because of Minister Walcott's background as a leading surgeon in this country, as a person, therefore, who understands medicine, as a senior minister in my cabinet, because I'm also engaging at this point in time in the preparation of government's estimates and budgets, I felt the need for the additional assistance with him chairing the subcommittee. Santia is going to continue to focus on getting the schools right. Dale is working, as you know, in the most difficult environment with respect to us getting the directives, the laws, while still dealing with the law and order situation. So that we have a competent team. And I must tell you that I was very proud of your performances on Monday. I say so publicly, but I also want you to know that they enjoy my full confidence and that Minister Walcott will continue, therefore, to manage this exercise for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, PM. And just in closing, I want to thank the Minister Bostic, the CMO, and the Prime Minister for participating. Finally, I want to say that on Monday, I spoke to you all about taking the necessary precautions. I want to encourage you to still do that. Take this period as a period of rest and reflection. Don't go outside partying if you don't have to. I want to remind you that even though there might be a curfew on from midnight, that indeed the combined policing team of the Barbados Police Force and the Defense Force will be out, and they have the necessary technical capacity which is being deployed to ensure that during this period that people maintain the restraint that we need them to do at this point in time. For those of you members of the press, certainly we will be engaging you over the course of the weekend. We will be open to answering your questions. You would appreciate that I said at the beginning that this matter occurred during the period of the last 6 hours, and in terms of getting all of the plans in place, that is still being done as we speak to you. The Health EOC is working at present at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and we will certainly be back to speak to you during the course of the weekend. This having been said, I want to again wish all of you safe, healthy 2021, which we hope will bring added goodwill and best wishes to you and your families, and ask you that a lot of this is in your hands, to exercise restraint, remember to wear your mask, to wash your hands, and maintain that physical distance, even for those of you who are going to church this evening. I thank you.